Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And today we are in esteemed company. With me, I have over here renowned cricket commentator, broadcaster, anchor person, and analyst from across the border in India. He has had 16 years of experience working with ESPN Star, and currently he features for CRIQAZI on YouTube. You might even recognize him from the fictional Amazon Prime show Inside Edge, on which he had a brief acting appearance. It is my great privilege to present to you Mr. Gautam Bhimani, and today we'll be discussing the latest developments in Indian cricket on this volume of
CRIQAZI Diaries.
Have a look at that, smiles up, oh, it's nearly taken someone out the stands. That was a flat six right under the stand there, the George Giffen stand, up into the members, and it went like a rocket. Well, wicket 24.
Welcome to the show, Gautam. Thank you so much for making it to my show. And I want to say, even before we start, that growing up, I followed you throughout, and someone who loves to talk about cricket and has ambitions of covering cricket professionally, you have been a role model, someone I look up to and draw inspiration from. And I hope that one day I can emulate the same kind of success that you have achieved throughout your career.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely flattered. Makes me feel a little old, but I'll excuse you for that one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we used to get ESPN Star in Pakistan, and I used to always watch you guys, and it was just great content. And that's why we're here today, I suppose.
Yes, it's why. Absolutely. Love being here.
Awesome. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about our first topic. And it has created shockwaves, not just in Indian cricket, but across the cricketing world. Rohit Sharma has been appointed as India's white ball captain. And while Virat Kohli had announced that he will be stepping down from the T20 international captaincy, him being replaced as ODI captain has come across as somewhat of a shock. Of course, Virat Kohli had won 65 of his 95 ODIs as India captain and does have the third best win-loss ratio in the history of ODI cricket, on top of which he averaged 72 with the bat as captain for India in ODIs. Now, Sourav Ganguly said that he has acknowledged all of this and they did think about it, but he has gone with the approach that there should be one white ball captain. And Rohit Sharma, of course, also does have a great record for India, captaining them in however many ODIs he has had the opportunity to captain them in, on top of which he has had a stellar record captaining Mumbai Indians to 5 IPL titles. So what do you make of all of this, Gautam?
Well, first and foremost, I think a bit like our pre-favorite topic, not from the world of sport, that's the coronavirus. I think the biggest super spreader in the world was not COVID-19, it was WhatsApp, much more in the last couple of years. Similarly, I think one of the big drawbacks in world cricket, and a lot of it is in Indian cricket, the biggest problems happen on social media, in news channels, and across WhatsApp. That's where the most drama is created. That's where the stories, the dramatic stories, the negative stories all come out. First and foremost, the first thing to say is it's not a controversy that needs to be raked up. Yes, sometimes you can look at the process, the timing, and say it maybe wasn't ideal. But then sport is not meant to be ideal. I mean, every ball a batsman faces doesn't come perfectly onto the bat. You make adjustments and you still score your runs. Virat Kohli is no stranger to that. So it's about looking away from it and saying, is the end result going to benefit Indian cricket? And I think the answer should simply be yes. Because logically, while we have 3 formats in the game, I think it makes sense. And I think a lot of people share that view that you really talk about white ball versus red ball. In the past, it used to be purely just 50 over versus test cricket. Now we have a third format that's come in. Let's ignore T10 for the moment, internationally speaking. And it just makes sense that if you're really starting to look at specialists in a sense, or different captains, or sometimes even different teams across formats, I think when it comes to leadership, one person for white ball, one person for red ball makes a lot of sense. You will have a bit of a further set of specialists who play only T20 cricket and some who play only test cricket, but there will be a lot of overlap. So at the end of the day, I think it just makes a lot of sense that Rohit Sharma should be captaining in both the white ball formats, and Virat Kohli focuses on test cricket. It just makes sense. I don't think there's any controversy.
Got it. And one criticism, of course, that Virat Kohli has received throughout his tenure as captain is that he's failed to win an ICC trophy, and he's also been unsuccessful as captain of the Royal Challengers Bangalore. Do you think that was one of those factors that came into play when the BCCI was making this decision?
I don't think so. Firstly, the two things are very separate, very different issues. There are many people who will look at any captain and look at two sides of it. There are people who have said maybe he's not quite a people person in the way a Rohit Sharma might be, or the way an MS Dhoni was. Maybe doesn't have that inclusiveness in a dressing room. They used to say MS Dhoni's hotel room doors were always wide open for anyone to walk in. But everyone has their own style. It's the way you go about it. And at the end of the day, it's how you conduct yourself in public. He always had the right things to say. You could see he had a camaraderie with all of his players. There'll always be the odd ego clash with certain players. And those things come and go. But at the end of the day, I don't think any board in the world will look and say, not quite won an ICC trophy, let's get rid of him. No, it could have happened to anybody. At the end of the day, it's the team that won or lost a particular tournament. MS Dhoni had a great team. In 2007, he didn't even know what this format was about. He went and won a T20 World Cup. 4 years later, goes and wins a 50-over World Cup. But look at Virat Kohli's record as a test captain. So I don't think it's about looking at those trophies or the silverware. It's just about looking at what is best for the team. And I think that's the way to go forward. With Royal Challengers Bangalore, I think it was a totally different thing. It was one of those situations where they had probably the most star-studded team across all seasons. I mean, when you have a Chris Gayle and a Virat Kohli and an AB de Villiers, at some point Shane Watson, so many big stars in the same team, you're sort of expected to win every title. Doesn't always happen that way. The time when they reached the pinnacle of it early on, they didn't have such a star-studded team. They still made it to a final. So I don't think it's really about that. I think Bangalore fans will just look at it and say, it's going to come one of these days. And it might just come at the most unlikely time. And the sad part is, if now, whenever it does happen, a trophy for them, it won't come under his captaincy. And people might turn around and say, see, Virat couldn't win it for all those seasons. Now, so-and-so has come and won it. At one point, I thought it would be KL Rahul, but apparently it's not going to be him.
Fair enough. I mean, I can't argue with that logic. And of course, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma has also mentioned that will remain a leader in that team, of course. And he has left a legacy of fitness. He's really prioritized fitness and he's rallied his men so well in all formats that they always give their 110% on the field, which I think will go a long way. And he has played his role in Indian cricket. Moving on, I want to talk to you and pick your brain a bit, Gautam, regarding Ajinkya Rahane and the emergence of Shreyas Iyer in Test cricket. Now, Shreyas Iyer, prior to making his Test debut, had played 54 first-class games and had a staggering average of over 52 at a mind-blowing strike rate of over 80. And he translated those numbers in his Test match debut, became the first Indian to score 100 and a 50 on debut. India might not have won that game, but he definitely made his mark. And on the flip side, Ajinkya Rahane, he's been a veteran for India in Test match cricket. But since that Boxing Day 100 versus Australia late last year, he's played 12 Test matches, scored 411 runs at a very low average of 19.57. And that is definitely a cause for concern, which is why I guess he also ended up losing his spot in the second Test to Shreyas Iyer. But one thing I will say over here, which is something that I'm curious to know what you think about, is that Ajinkya Rahane averages less than 36 in home tests, but overseas he averages more than 40. So he has been proven over there, and especially in South Africa, I think he's also scored 100 over there. And Shreyas Iyer is untested. We have no idea how he'll fare versus the moving ball in testing conditions. So how do you think India should move forward in that series versus South Africa? Should Rahane get another go, or should Shreyas Iyer be thrown into the deep end?
Well, it's going to be a tough one. It is going to be a tough call to take. And a lot of these calls are also taken very close to the start of a test match, because sometimes it's about the feel that you get. I mean, you and I could sit here and discuss saying, logically, Shreyas Iyer, he's the man for the job. It's sort of a baton being passed from Rahane to Shreyas, almost like a new generation, even though Shreyas has been around for a while. Many felt he should have made his debut in Test cricket a long time ago. But fact is, he's made it when he has made it. But it's all about the feel, sometimes almost on the eve of a test match or 2 days before a test match. Who's hitting the ball well in the nets? Who's feeling good about being in South Africa? Are you just getting that sense that because Rahane has been there and done that, you're getting a little bit more confidence? Is Virat Kohli going to feel a little bit more confident with that? So I think it's a little bit about the feel, not so much about what we might feel or what numbers might suggest. I think that's one thing they will not look at is numbers. I mean, you do look at form. You do look at form. You do look at someone whose build-up has happened to the series. In some cases, imagine the toss-up was between, say, a Shreyas Iyer, an Ajinkya Rahane, and throw in another name, say, from the A series, one of the batsmen who's been in sizzling form, and they're in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And you suddenly realize that, okay, they've been playing there, they've been playing in similar conditions. Is it worth drafting someone like that in? Now, that's something you consider seriously because it's current form. But honestly, to come back to your original question, it's a tough one. And I think it can only be answered by the captain closer to the time. Because yes, it's a clear toss-up between the new kid on the block, and I'm calling Shreyas Iyer that purely from his test experience, who started in dream fashion. But yet, as you said, those runs in India versus any conditions in a place like South Africa against that bowling attack are completely different things. So you've got to turn around and say, what's best for the team? No disrespect to Shreyas. He's around for a long while. But for this series, in this test match, for this 11, if Rahane makes more sense, we go with Rahane.
Absolutely. I mean, and Virat Kohli has backed Rahane time and again. Even most recently, he has said that Rahane is still very much part of the team. So I'll be very curious to see what direction India go over there. Another selection conundrum that I wanted to discuss with you, Gautam, was that of Mohammad Siraj. Now, what a scintillating start he's had to his test career. Really, really impressive in England. And then in the second test, on a pitch where Kyle Jamieson and Tim Southee, two seasoned veterans, well, Tim Southee, not Kyle Jamieson, but they've been very, very successful in the recent past. They failed to take a single wicket, and Siraj struck up front thrice and really, really reminded the world just how good he is. Now, given he's made such a solid start to his test career, you have, on the other hand, Ishant Sharma, who has had a career of two halves. He wasn't too impressive in the first half, but in the second half, he's probably the most improved test bowler I've ever seen in my life. Those numbers tell the story on their own. But ever since he's been back from injury, it seems like he's lost a bit of bite. And I'm curious to know, what do you think? Should India persist with Ishant in the first test, or should they go with Siraj? Because Bumrah and Shami, there's no way they're dropping those two guys. They've been extremely good for India in the recent past.
Well, I mean, there's no way you can keep a Mohammad Siraj out. I mean, just everything he brings to the table, the energy he brings to the table, even for those who don't look at the technical aspect of cricket, as in whether a guy moves the ball and what's he doing with the seam and how he presents the seam and all those other technical aspects of the game, which some people understand, some people don't understand enough of. Purely looking at body language and having a guy like him out there and how much of a trier he is, every single ball, even if you've gone for a few runs and you're coming at the fag end of the day, you toss the ball to him, he'll be coming in with that same energy, which is not to suggest that Ishant Sharma won't, and he's not going to be trying, but there's still a difference between age, the toll it takes on your body, as you said, coming back from injury. So I would say, again, like with the Rahane and Shreyas Iyer debate, I think it's about the experience versus the enthusiasm of youth. So while with a batsman, you may lean a little towards the experience because of having tolerated. I was actually going to see if I should use that word or not. But yeah, tolerated sometimes is a good word when it comes to playing quick bowlers in South Africa. And be it Rabada or Nokia or now Juan Olivier, if he comes back into the side, he's quick. So they're going to be throwing a lot of quick stuff at India. So when it comes to the batters, maybe you might prefer experience over youth. But when it comes to bowlers, I think the temptation would be Mohammad Siraj over Ishant Sharma, purely because you want someone to go out there and utilize those fast bowling conditions in the best way possible. So you never know. They might just pull a rabbit out of the hat and play both of them and have four seamers. If you could possibly do that, if you can have, confidence in just going in with one spinner.
Absolutely. And you can even throw in Umesh Yadav's name in there. He's been quite impressive for India in the last few test matches that he's played. But Mohammad Siraj, personally, I really like the aggression and pomp with which he plays his cricket, the body language. You just love to watch him bowl, and he's always part of the game. Also has a bit of theatrics to his celebrations and everything, which is always fun to watch from a fast bowler. But moving on to my final question, India versus South Africa. Now, this is India's final frontier. They've won a test series in every other cricketing nation, but the Rainbow Nation evades them. And they came really close last time, but fell agonizingly short. This time, they do look like favorites. South Africa is not the South Africa of old. And this India team, really, they've been so impressive away. And I think that's really been the hallmark of Virat Kohli's test captaincy, is that he's been able to change that. India have become a great touring side, and they are more than capable, their bowlers especially, of taking 20 wickets in each of those test matches. And I don't really see a particular threat from any of the South African batsmen. Maybe Rassie van der Dusen comes to mind, but I think India have got that base covered. But then what you mentioned, South Africa's pace bowling attack. Kagiso Rabada and Anrich Nortje are one of the best fast bowling partnerships going around in world cricket right now. And throw into that Duan Olivier, who has been quite prolific for South Africa in the past. Of course, I would know that. He absolutely dismantled Pakistan a bunch of years ago. And he's back to Test cricket now after a long Kolpak hiatus. So he'll be raring to go. How do you think, Gautam, India's batsmen will fare in testing conditions against that fast bowling trio? And do you think India finally have a shot at winning a test series in South Africa, basically completing the set of defeating every single test station in their own backyard?
Yeah, I remember that Duan Olivier's spell against Pakistan. It was probably the first time we really saw what he was made of, and the world stood up and took notice. And when he departed, I think a lot of batsmen, or when he departed, as you said, for that little Kolpak stint, people said, oh, that's a bit of a relief. We'll only have 2, not 3 coming at us at that pace. But if he's back, it's going to be a test. As you said, this is really a test. Whether you call it the final frontier, call it what you like, it's going to be a huge test. The experience is with India. The whole ability to win, like they've done in Australia, like they've done in England, also lies with India. South Africa's batting lineup, vastly inexperienced, be it at the top order, middle order. Rassie van der Dusen still, trying to establish himself, but he would like to have other players around him. He would have liked it if he could have eased himself a little bit more with the du Plessis and the de Villiers and maybe a Hashim Amla type batsman there. When you have that kind of quality at the top order, then you know that you can put runs on the board and then hand it over to the bowlers. Here is going to be so much responsibility on hoping that the fast bowlers can just blow India all out for 150. And then it's not that once you do that, you don't have some hostility to face of your own. You could do that. And then South Africa's inexperienced batters suddenly realize they're up against Bumrah and Shami and Siraj, maybe also Ishant. So it's relentless. So that's the difference in India now and India in the past. In the past also, if you had thought, okay, can India go and win elsewhere? You wouldn't quite consider that, okay, the batsman will do the job. I'm thinking of, say, 2003-04 when India went to Australia and won that test match in Adelaide. It was Australia putting on 500 in the first innings. India responded with 500. And then it took Ajit Agarkar, a magical 6-wicket spell to get India back into the game, to have a reasonable fourth innings chase, with Dravid and Lakshman also handled. But the point is, it was one Ajit Agarkar spell. It was one big spell from Srinath. It was the odd spell there that would come and rescue India and make them look good in those days. Now it's different. India have a full fast bowling attack to match the best in the world. And that is, I think, the difference in India. It's not just a big star like a Virat Kohli. It's not just players like this who will come and stand up for you. Kohli doesn't fire. Well, there's enough other batsmen to do the job. If the batsmen don't quite get as many runs on the board as you expect, no problem. The bowlers will be there to your rescue. So I think that's the whole all-round ability that makes India believe that they can actually conquer this final frontier.
100%. And on one final note, Gautam, I just want to touch a bit on the management side of things. Of course, Rahil Dravid has taken over as India's head coach, one of the most respected names in world cricket, and has a proven record with India's under-19 team. This is really going to be his biggest challenge thus far in his coaching career with India's first team. And then also on the flip side, you look at South Africa, and there have been so many issues with respect to racism and a lot of controversy going on in their board. Quinton de Kock resigning as the test captain, and there was a lot of hurdles over there as well. Do you think India may have an edge in that respect too? And what do you expect from Rahil Dravid in the series?
Yeah, I mean, those issues can never be right. Luckily, the last time it happened, it was resolved quickly. It was dealt with well. I think anyone who knows Quinton de Kock, and I was on a show with Zahir Khan and a few others who know Quinton de Kock from up close, and when you see them in a franchise, you get to know them just as much as if you share a dressing room with them in the national team. And I think everyone was unequivocal that Quinton's the nicest guy going around. He's not the kind of person who will take a stand that's a wrong stand. All he did was say that, look, I don't think anyone should be forced to take that stand. That was his only contention. It got resolved. And let's remind people, Quinton also comes from a mixed race background.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the last person to be standing in an elitist white chair and looking down upon anything. He himself is the first one to admit that. So I'm glad for South Africa's sake that that's been put behind them. But yeah, the sort of fallout of that, maybe a few distractions from that, the change of a little bit of personnel, be it the captaincy or anybody else, maybe a little bit of a distraction, but I think they've had enough time to put that right. They've got reasonable amount of depth, as we've seen with a few of their good stars coming in, even in their A team. Not quite the kind of depth India have, but I think enough depth. But the biggest thing for them will be, can they take advantage of their home conditions? Can their bowlers? And of course, we expect the pitches will be pretty spicy, pretty quick, pretty green. And why not? That's what India will have when people come to India. And you really have to take advantage of your home conditions. But yeah, Rahul Dravid, yes, it's a test for him, but he'll be the first to admit that he can only do so much and no more. Mm-hmm. He can be a friend to the team. He can maybe whisper a few things that he sees going right. This is what Gary Kirsten said when he first came in to coach the Indian team. He said, I'm not going to go and tell Sachin Tendulkar how to bat. What I can do is go to him as a friend, go to him as somebody I've played with, and just tell him, hey, mate, I think this is something maybe you want to try it differently, and I can just watch along. And that's the job of a coach. The job of a coach at a junior level and the job of a coach at a senior level are two completely different kinds of things. At a junior level, you're going to have to stand a youngster down and say, what was that rubbish? I need you to play this way. You were doing this completely wrong. Your technique needs to be changed. You're molding cricketers. You're molding minds. You're molding techniques. Whereas when you're at the highest level, it's already been molded. You just need to nudge people in the right direction if you feel they may be not perhaps going in that perfect direction. And you need to be like a mentor, like a friend, like an extra voice, like an inspiration almost in that dressing room. And people look up to Rahul Dravid. And I think that's all he needs to do, is inspire the team to do well rather than have to say the right things or the wrong things, as a coach per se.
Some fantastic perspective over there, Gautam. Thank you so much. Just before I end this video, I know there's a long time still for the series to begin, but you want to throw out a pre-series prediction over there?
So we are talking about 3 test matches, Centurion, Wanderers, and then Cape Town. I have a sneaking feeling there'll be a bit of weather around somewhere or the other. So I'm going to throw in weather for 1 draw. And I'm going to go 2-0 India.
I'm going to go a little different. I'll say 2-1 India, but I do feel that India have what it takes to finally conquer that last country that remains on the checklist. Thank you so much once again, Gautam. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Really, I've had a fanboy moment in this interview, and I hope to have you on the show once again.
Pleasure would be all mine. Great fun. And maybe once it's 2-0 or 2-1, depending on that, we can hold each other to it and see what happens at the end of that series.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap for Volume 94, folks. As always, if you enjoyed this video, like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon in order to be notified about all of my latest videos. I'll catch you soon enough. That's all for now. Qazi off the mic.
Have a look at that. Smiles up. Oh, it's nearly taken someone out of the stands. That was a flat 6 right under the stand there, the George Giffen stand, up into the members, and it went like